Hey, welcome back to Dan's Chess Lounge, everyone. So today we have game number 5 of the FIDE World Chess Championship. So you have Jan Nepomniachtchi playing the white pieces. Ding Liren has black. Let's see what transpired over the board today. Let's see if Nepo is going to bounce back from his crushing defeat in game number 4. So today he started off with pawn e4, and this is back to his normal opening repertoire. You have e5, and you have a Ruy Lopez. Now, they played a Ruy Lopez in game number 1. If you recall, Nepo played the delayed exchange variation on this next move right here. But today he plays d3. This is a big difference here. It's still not the main line, though. The main line is 6e1, rook e1. That's the main line there. But today he plays pawn d3. And also, in this position right here, black can drop a pawn if he plays too quickly. For example, if black just castles right here, then white can snap off the knight, and then black can capture the pawn on e5. So going back to the position here after d3, black plays b5 here, which stops the bishop from capturing. And you have d6, and d6 reinforces the central pawns. c3 was played here by Jan, and that is to give his bishop sort of like a flight square, because the knight will oftentimes go to a5, and then the bishop will not have a place to flee. Castles in h3. h3 is a prophylactic move or a waiting move here, and it also prevents the light square bishop from going to g4 and pinning the knight and queen. Bishop b7, a4, so you have some queenside activity in play. Knight attacks the bishop, bishop retreats back, and c5. And here black gets his break move in, and so far the play has been pretty standard for a Ruy Lopez opening. These type of positions here, both players have played countless times, going back to when they were kids. So I would imagine that both players are pretty comfortable with the positions on the board right now. Bishop g5, and the engine evaluates this position right here as completely equal. It's a dead draw, 0.00. So both players have nothing to fear at this moment here. They're both just trying to establish their plans for the next phase of the game. h6, and Nepo gives up his bishop here. He hands Ding the bishop pair, but Nepo looks like he's eyeing the d5 square at some point, which the knight that Ding had on f6 had a strong hold over the d5 square. Captures, develops his second knight, and there we go. Nepo jumps into that d5 square as soon as he could. Okay, so you have some captures on the open a file. Rook e1, rook a8, and black here has occupied the open a file. So this is a small victory here, a little victory for Ding here. He does have the open a file to operate on. Bishop back to d8. The bishop wasn't really eyeing anything on f6, so this is like a reroute move. He's going to move the bishop to d8 with the hopes of bringing it out to a better diagonal. Knight f1, and the light square bishops are swapped off the board. So reevaluating the position here, you have two knights here for Nepo against a knight and a bishop for Ding. Let's see how this is going to play out in the position. Knight jumps into E3, excuse me. Bishop E6. And we've reached a moment in the game where things are starting to heat up. This is sort of like a critical position in the game right here. What would you play for white? Go ahead, pause the video, and try to think of a good move, an active move for white. Okay, I'm going to continue. So Nepo decided to play H4 here. And he's throwing the H pawn up the board, better known as Harry the H pawn. And we all know that GM Ginger, Simon Williams, coined the H pawn, Harry the H pawn. So basically Nepo wants to gain space on the king side here. And with more space on the king side, it can just be more problems for Ding. And also the H pawn will also take squares away, more squares away from Ding's knight in pieces. So you have Queen C6. Instead of weakening his own king side, trying to stop the H pawn by playing H5 himself or playing G6, Ding just decides to play Queen C6 and worry about his own counterplay on the queen side here. H5, C4. So Ding's continuing with his plans. He's opened up that diagonal there for his bishop, and that is a beautiful diagonal there. You have D4, and it looks like this pawn here is free for Ding to capture. But if he did that, that might not be the best thing for him to do. Queen captures pawn, runs into knight captures C4, and this would be a discovered attack on the queen and on the bishop there. So instead of playing that move, he just plays E captures D, the knight captures back, and then he goes to Queen C5 here. Now, Nepo gets his queen active in the game. He plays Queen G4, Queen E5. This keeps an eye on his king side. Knight F3. This hits his queen. And Ding offers a queen trade. Nepo declines. He plays Knight F5 here. And here Ding decides to capture. He plays knight captures knight. Going back here, the engine seemed to like Queen F6 a little bit better. Although this position does look a little scary for black, it's completely equal, and white can't really make any progress right here. But instead, Ding played knight captures F5 here. Knight captures knight. And then pawn captures, queen goes to F6, and Queen E4. And if we sit back and evaluate this position right here, oddly enough, white is a little better here. And the reason is because he has complete control over the E file, and he has just more initiative, and his pieces are just doing a little bit more. Even though he's got the double F pawns, he's just a little bit more active. So continuing with the game here, we have Rook B8. This looks like Ding wants to target the B2 pawn, maybe get the bishop out of the way. He wants to still continue to do something on the queen side. Rook E2. The bishop does move out of the way. And this is a beautiful move here from Jan. He plays G4. You know, it's really something when you have strong players. They know when to move the pieces on their king side. That's usually looked at as protectors. Usually you're told to, not do anything to your king side and use that as a means of protection. But the strong players, of course, the super GMs and GMs, they know when to break the rules and bend the rules in their favor. And this is another example of that. G4 is a beautiful move here. And it looks like Ding might be in a little bit of trouble. So then he plays Queen D8, Queen D5, and the king comes over to the center. Jan is also moving his king closer towards the center. You have Rook C8 and Rook E4. This move here, Rook E4, is a clever move because, of course, Jan's intentions is to push the pawn and break open the king side there. But the rook move here is to swing over and protect the pawns and get behind the pawns so they can continue to bust through the black camp. Rook B8, and Ding is just shuffling his rook back and forth at this point. That's never a good sign. It's almost like you're just prey and you're just waiting to be eaten. So now you have the move G5. He wants to break through. So Ding plays H takes G5 here, which isn't the best move here. But what else could he play here? So instead of H takes G5, Ding could have tried to just wait a little bit longer before taking. He could have played maybe Queen C8, like a waiting move. Jan would more than likely try to tear open the position with G takes H6, captures back, F6, tries to pin the king in or box the king in. But then you would have Queen H3 check. Rook goes to E2. And here, in this position, white is still slightly better. But in this position, black has counterplay. Ding has some counterplay going on. He has some threats of his own going on in the position. He's just not sitting there and just waiting. So this would be, and white is not checkmating black anytime soon here either. So this would have been a better continuation instead of Ding capturing on H5. So then after that, of course, Jan plays Rook G4. And let's see here. Ding plays Rook A8. Now you might be wondering, why didn't Ding, reinforce his pawn on G5, right? Why didn't he play F6 here? Well, let's see why he didn't play F6. Then Nepo could play Knight H4, and then this would be trouble for Ding because then that knight could hop into G6. That would check the king. The king can't go to G8 because the queen is hitting that square. So that would force the king over to the center. Then you would have the rook swooping over. It would be problems there for Ding. So what would happen if Ding captured then? If he played G takes knight, well, then you would have H6. And this is also big trouble for Ding because then Ding would try to stop that, right? Lock up the position. You have capture via en passant. And black was totally lost here. There's no way that black is going to be able to stop both of these pawns from promoting. The rook behind it, the queen is on a beautiful diagonal and square there in the middle of the board. So that would be trouble there. So that's why Ding did not play F6 in the position. Instead, he played Rook A8, looking to play Rook A1 and generate some counterplay of his own. So then Jan captures the pawn on G5. You do have Rook A1 check. The king moves to the middle of the board. It seems like the king would prefer to go to G2 and hide behind the pawn cover there, the F pawn. But instead, Jan decides to go to E2, Queen E7 check, and he blocks with the knight. Queen E8, staying on the pin there. So the king moves out of the way, getting out of the pin. Queen A8, Ding offers another trade, And this time, Jan does accept. The queens come off the board, and we have an endgame here. It's interesting to note we have an equal position material-wise, but Jan has a lot more initiative, and he has these very strong pawns that's looking to break through on the king side here, the H pawn and the F pawn here. So Jan definitely has the initiative and has a better position here. So you have F6. Ding tries to not break open the position, so he plays G6 here. Jan captures, Ding captures back, and the rook infiltrates the position. Ding tries to generate some counterplay here. He plays rook A2. The king moves out the way here. Ding captures, and you have rook H6 here. Now, believe it or not, Ding resigned here in this position. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, well, why did he resign here? Well, let's just kind of explore a little bit and see why he might have resigned. Let's just say Ding goes for some counterplay, right? Let's say he plays, rook E2 here, hitting the knight. Then you would have knight G5. And guess what? Rook H8 is coming here with checkmate being threatened. Okay? So what if the king tries to run, right? King E8. You would have F7 check. The king goes to E7. And now you have the beautiful move, rook F6. Now this is awesome here because if he captures the rook, then the pawn promotes queen. So black cannot stop the queen from promoting. If the king tries to block the promotion square itself by moving the king F8, then you just have the knight going to H7 check, moving the king off of the promotion square. So this would be game over right here. Let's see what else could happen here. When Jan played H6, instead, let's see if he played King E8 trying to run. Then you would have rook H8 check. King goes to F7. And guess what? You would have king to F5 followed up with knight G5 coming checkmate. There is nothing really that black can do without, except for sacking his pieces. He could play like rook captures F2, but then the knight would just capture the rook, and then this would be a lost position. It would just be a slower death, basically. So this position is completely lost for Ding, and he resigned. It's understandable. So that was an interesting game there. Nepo definitely bounced back. Ding did not have his best game here. Jan takes the lead in the match with a 3-2 lead. But with that said, I would much rather have this type of world championship match where there's decisive games back to back. There's excitement here. You never know who's going to win these games here. When you didn't really feel that way when Magnus Carlsen was playing in these championships. You kind of always got the sense that, Carlsen was either going to win or it was going to be a draw. You never really felt like you didn't know who was going to win these games like you have now. So with that said, how is Dean going to react? Is he going to bounce back? Stay tuned for game number 6. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See y'all next time.